I'm Jacob Courtwright, and this is The Locker Room.
What's going on, everybody? Jacob Courtwright here with another Saturday morning pick'ems with the boys. And because they have been my most viewed episode, I continually bring them back. At the bottom here on my screen, of course, we have Mr. Seth Thornton. And then at my top left, we have, of course, my brother, Mr. Justin Courtwright, with the Flash shirt on and those tiny muscles. So far this year, Justin Courtwright has been the worst picker by percentage margin. He has picked landslides that have never come true. So far this year, Mr. Steve Hines has the closest to a near perfect pick, excluding myself. So let's make sure that maybe today we can find our perfect picker, or at least get a little bit closer. We're going to start right off with number 13, Wisconsin versus Michigan. Now, Michigan's lost to Indiana. That was their first loss to Indiana since 1987. Mertz is in question, though, for the Wisconsin Badgers because of the whole COVID sitting out situation. In the Big Ten, if you are tested positive for COVID, you have to sit out a total of 21 days as opposed to the standard 14 days. So he will be eligible to play maybe on Saturday. They still aren't quite sure. And their backup to Mertz is also in COVID protocol and will not be available. So they might be down to their third string starting quarterback. But the good thing is that they're playing a Michigan team that allows 287 throughout the air. Michigan's offense is based on their offensive line. Can their offensive line block long enough to either run or put the ball in the air? That's the big question here for Michigan's offense. So, Seth, I'm going to go to you first. What do you think about this game? I think you're covering your mic there, Seth.
Can you hear me better?
There you go.
Yeah, I think that the Wisconsin quarterback is the key to the game.
Yes.
Whether or not he plays or not. If he plays, I think Wisconsin will handle Michigan pretty easily. But if he doesn't play, it could become a running game, really.
Yeah. Justin, what do you think about this game?
So I don't care who Michigan is playing. They're the worst team I've seen in a long time. I would pick a high school team over Michigan right now because they are that bad. The quarterback is awful. The defense is just atrocious. And so with that, I have to go Wisconsin. I don't even care if it's their third string quarterback. Hell, their punter could even play quarterback. And Wisconsin would still win the game because Michigan is that bad. So with that, I'm going Wisconsin, and I'm going big win for Wisconsin. I'm going at least 3 touchdowns. I'm going 35-14, more than 3 touchdowns, because Michigan is just, they have no running game. They have no throwing game, and they can't stop a little high school team on defense. So with that, I'm going Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, Seth, who do you have in this game to win it?
I think Wisconsin, yeah.
Yeah, at the end of the day, here's the deal. Milton, I actually like for Michigan this year. I think he's a decently talented quarterback, one of their best they've had in recent history. But the problem is they have an offensive line that's way too inconsistent. And Michigan has always been how their offensive line goes is how their offense goes. They don't have enough on defense to stop Wisconsin. I do believe Mertz will be in the ball game. As far as I'm hearing, he will literally be tested at 8 a.m. tomorrow. So if he gets tested at 8 a.m. and tests clear, he will play. If that's the case, I've got Wisconsin. I'm going to say it's a little bit closer. I'm not going to go 3 touchdowns, but I do say this is probably a 28-14 win for Wisconsin. All right, moving down, we've got number 23, Northwestern, undefeated, versus Purdue, also undefeated. So the battle of some undefeated teams here. Now, Northwestern's quarterback, Ramsey, is among the lowest ranked in college football. In the FBS, he averages only 169 yards a game with as many touchdowns as he has interceptions thus far. They will rely heavily on a talented backfield in Anderson and Bowser to really run the ball in tomorrow's football game, really what they have done all year. Now, Purdue ranks 83rd nationally in run defense, which is not great. It's better than last year where they were 92, but still 83, not good at all. Their purpose on offense is basically get it to their speedy guys on the outside. That is what Purdue has always had. That's what they continue to produce. The big question for Purdue's offense is, are there 2-star wide receivers, one of them that is probably going to go in the first round, and Rondale Moore, and then David Bell, going to be in this football game? That is the big question. If their offense has both of those guys, I think this becomes a pretty heavily shootout contest later in the game. I'm going to go ahead and predict mine first. I'm going to go Northwestern here in a 34-24 game. I just think Northwestern is going to maintain more time of possession with that run game. Justin, I'll go to you this time. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, let's be honest. Both teams are terrible. All right, let's be honest. They're some of the lowest teams in the Big Ten. They're both just terrible. All right. The quarterback for Northwestern, he's literally a high school quarterback could play better than him at this point because he's not good. 169 yards. Are you kidding me? The average yards that a quarterback gets in college is over 290 yards average. That's an average college football quarterback passing. All right. And this guy only throws 169 yards. He's not. I can't put any faith in that. And I can't put any faith in maybe these 2 wide receivers for Purdue might play. I can't put any faith in that. So with 2 very bad teams playing, I'm going to go. It's going to be a shootout. It's going to be a close game. I'm going to go 27-24 Northwestern just because they're ranked. And I don't think Purdue is any good as well.
Seth, what do you think?
Well, see, I'm going to have to go with Purdue on this one. I think that Northwestern has scooted by both wins. And I think Purdue's kind of done the same, but I think Purdue is feeling better than Northwestern is at the moment. And I do think those wide receivers will play. If they don't, it might change a little bit, but I'm going to go with Purdue on this one.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those very interesting matchups because this is a game that if Purdue has all cylinders of offense ready to fire, this could be a blowout win for Purdue. But at the same time, if Northwestern can keep them off the field with a heavy attack run game, it could literally go the opposite way. So this is going to be a very intriguing matchup. For those of you who don't watch a lot of college football or are looking for good matchups, that is what we do here on the show. I try and find the best matchups of the day. With so many canceled games due to COVID, we've tried to really dig deep on this episode, but that's going to be a fun game to watch. Now, to the big number 2 in the country, Notre Dame versus Boston College. Now, Ian Book is coming off not only a career day, but a career day of his entire career with 310 yards, 1 passing touchdown. He beat the number 1 team in the country in Clemson. First off, Karen Williams, their stud running back, had over 140 yards as well. But they are going against a top 40 scoring defense in Boston College. And we saw Boston College give the number 1 team in the country, Clemson, some trouble when they played them earlier. Now, DJ was the starting quarterback at that point. It wasn't Trevor Lawrence. So that I do believe still makes a massive difference, not only in Notre Dame's win, but also in Boston College's close game. You plug Trevor Lawrence into that system, I think it's a lot bigger landslide the other way. But this is going to be a very fun game. You've got Jerkovich, who is completing over 70% of his passes thus far this year. With no run game in sight, they're going to rely heavily on the air. So at the end of the day, I do believe that Jerkovich is going to get Boston College to score some points, but I just don't think it's enough to overcome a Notre Dame team that has a much better run game, a much better passing game. They're going to maintain possession time because that is just what Notre Dame football does. The good thing about Boston College is that Jerkovich has spread the wealth. He has thrown a touchdown to over 9 different targets thus far this season. So with a Notre Dame's defense that gave up 439 yards to a Clemson offense last week, it might get a little dodgy in the first couple quarters, but at the end of the day, think Notre Dame pulls it out 38-21 in a very fun game for the first half. But at the end of the day, Notre Dame prevails with time of possession and their run game. Seth, what do you think about this game?
Yeah. Hey, can we actually pause this?
Yeah.
Can we?
Yeah.
So you're able to stitch it? Okay. So
What? You foul piece of shit. What?
Okay. Are you ready? What's your vape boy? Because as loud as
All right,
the
hold on.
microphone, you're gonna die of cancer at 40. Okay.
That's why I haven't gotten COVID because I smoke. It's a proven fact. Smokers less likely to get COVID. It's an actual fact from the CDC. So you guys should take up smoking. Just saying.
Nope. I have a 99.4% recovery rate, so
All right, let's go. Let's go.
can we go now?
Yes, let's go, you son of a bitch. You fat fuck.
Oh my god.
Let's go.
Justin, this is all recorded, by the way.
Dude,
Let's
we're going to
go.
be here all night because of Justin. Oh, my God. Let's
Just
go.
before I start the damn show.
I was literally counting down and about to clap my start, and then you stood up, grabbed your dick, and said, "Let's fucking go!"
All right, let's go.
All right.
I'm ready.
What's going on, everybody? Jacob Courtright here with another Saturday morning pick'ems with the boys. And because these two just so happen to get the most views, I continually bring them back on to my Saturday morning pick'em show. I've got Mr. Seth Thornton and Justin Courtright here with me yet again. Now, gentlemen, between the two of you, Seth, you have the higher win percentage thus far in the picks. Justin, you tend to go for the big point spreads, so that has put you in the lower category thus far. But you get a chance to redeem yourself with some of these games today, and we are going to start off with number 13, Wisconsin versus Michigan. Now, Michigan is coming off a loss to Indiana. That is the first time they have lost to Indiana since 1987. Let that sink in. Mertz is in question, though, for the upcoming game against Wisconsin. The starting quarterback for Wisconsin is still in COVID protocol. Their second-string quarterback is out because of COVID. So if they do not have Mertz, they will be down to their third-string quarterback for tomorrow's division rival game. Also, there is no running back in Wisconsin this year like a Jonathan Taylor. So Wisconsin relies heavily through the air passing game thus far this year, and they're going to have to rely on that this entire season as they really have no star quarterback or offensive line that can push the ball like they did last year, of course, with one of the best running backs in all football, Jonathan Taylor. But the good thing for them is they're playing a Michigan team that has allowed 287 yards in the air a game. And the Michigan offense has been very sluggish thus far with an offensive line that literally dictates how they play. How the offensive line plays is how Michigan puts up points, and they have been very inconsistent. Seth, I'm going to go to you first. What do you think is going to happen in this game, and who do you have winning this game?
I think Wisconsin is going to take the game. I think without Wisconsin's quarterback, it could be a closer game, but I still think Wisconsin pulls it out. But on the flip side of that, this is definitely a game Harbaugh needs to win. With this loss and him moving to 1-3, he's really in jeopardy of losing that job.
Justin, what do you got going on in this game?
All right, so I first of all would like to say this. All right, I feel so confident about my pick that on the next podcast that we come on this show, I will wear a dress if I don't beat you two in these picks this week. All right, so I will wear a dress if I do not beat you two in these picks because that's how confident I feel I'm going to just destroy this week's picks this week. All right. So with that, I'm going to go straight to this game. Michigan, let's be honest. They are literally absolutely terrible. They are the worst. They are one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. They're just like a high school team for the Big Ten. They're just someone that people can beat up on. And I don't care if they put the punter as their quarterback. Doesn't matter. Wisconsin is way far better than Michigan. Harbaugh is going to be fired after this season. So with that, I'm going Wisconsin 35-14 to beat the lowly Michigan Wolverines, the basement of the Big Ten.
Well, I completely agree with you there. I am also going to go Wisconsin in a 28-14 victory here. Listen, if Wisconsin does not have its starting quarterback, Mertz, I do believe this game gets a little bit dicey, but I still think Wisconsin pulls out maybe a 27-24 victory at that point. Michigan's just a bad football team. Jim Harbaugh is either on his way to the NFL or on his way out the door in Michigan. It's just a bad year for Michigan Wolverines and to be a Michigan Wolverines fan. So we are all in agreement there that the Wisconsin Badgers will pull out game number 1. Now let's move on to game number 2, number 23 Northwestern versus Purdue. The battle of the undefeateds. Northwestern's quarterback Ramsey, though, is among the lowest in college football, averaging over only 169 yards a game, which is super sad to say the least. He averages as many touchdowns as he has interceptions thus far this year. They've had a couple of close performances, but at the end of the day, they have a dynamic backfield in Anderson and Bowser that can run the ball like a nightmare tandem you have always seen in college football from some of the bigger teams. They are Alabama-like in their size and strength and speed, especially for that division. Definitely not as good as an Alabama running back, though. But they bring a type of toughness and a type of energy from that backfield that you're not used to seeing in the Big Ten. So it is very interesting to me with those two running back combinations, how they're going to play out in this game. Now, Purdue ranks 83rd nationally in run defense, so not good, and they're going up against a very good running team. And Purdue might be missing its two best players. One of these players probably going in the first round, and one of them probably going in the second round with their two stud wide receivers, Rondell Moore and David Bell. If they are there present for the game, I think this game gets a lot closer than a lot of people think. Most people have the spread right now at around 14 for Northwestern. But both of those players play. I think this gets a little bit closer towards the end. Justin, I'm going to go to you. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, let's be honest. Purdue, yeah, they might be undefeated, but let's be honest, they haven't played anybody. Northwestern, they haven't played much anybody either. But the fact that they're ranked, I got to go with Northwestern because I just don't think Purdue is any match for Northwestern. Northwestern's size and speed is just going to overwhelm them. But I do think it's going to be a close game. I'm going to go 27-24, and I'm going to go Northwestern.
Seth, who do you got in this game?
I'm the reverse of that. I think because Northwestern is ranked, I think they're going to go into the match a little bit overlooking Purdue. I think Purdue's going to come out to play. Purdue beat them last year at their own home field. Yeah. And so I think they're going to come in this year and be ready for the game just like they were last year. I think they're going to upset them, and I think it's going to be a close game just like Justin said. But in the reverse, I got Purdue winning that one.
So this one's a little bit tough for me. I'm going to go Northwestern here in a 34-24 victory. Here's the two differences I have. If Northwestern can maintain time of possession and grind out this run game, I do believe this game gets to a point where it's just too much time not on the clock for Purdue to be able to come back, and that's why I have Northwestern winning. But that is yet to be seen. They're going against a very bad run defensive team in Purdue, but if Purdue has their full strength on offense, this could become a shootout, and it can go either way. So it's going to be a very interesting game. If you're a college football fan and your team got canceled this week due to all the COVID, this is a game to watch because this is going to be very interesting. Now let's move on to one of the biggest names in football right now, Notre Dame, for taking down the number one team last week in Clemson. Number 2 Notre Dame plays Boston College. Now Ian Book for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish is coming off a career day with 310 yards, beating the number 1 overall Clemson Tigers. But you also can't say that it was on his own because Kyron Williams rushed for over 140 yards, no doubt probably a first to second rounder in this upcoming draft. But they're also going up against a top 40 scoring defense in Boston College, who excels at taking the ball away from their opposing teams. Jerkovich, for their quarterback position, is completing over 70% of his passes this year. Boston College has no run game whatsoever, so Jerkovich is the only offense that they have. He has thrown the ball to 9 different wide receivers for scores thus far this year. And they're playing a Notre Dame team that has allowed 439 yards to a Clemson team and allowed over 260 yards throughout the air to every opposing team almost thus far this year. So it could get a little interesting in the first half, but at the end of the day, it's Notre Dame versus Boston College. So, Justin, what do you think is going to happen in this one?
Well, I think we all can admit that this is the biggest mismatch out of all the games in college football this week. Boston College, yeah, they might be okay. Their quarterback, I like him as much as I like their quarterback. Notre Dame I have them as a lock for in the playoffs this year. I think they're going to be one of the 4 teams to make the college football playoffs. I think they'll be undefeated at that time. And so with that, I just don't see any possible way that Boston College can even come close to beating them. And I'm going to go 40-15 Fighting Irish beat Boston College.
Seth, who do you got in this game?
I'm going to take Notre Dame as well. They're just too much for Boston College to handle. I think Notre Dame played a little bit better of a Clemson team than Boston College did and was able to come out with a win. So I'll take Notre Dame in this one. But from what Justin said, I don't think Notre Dame's as tough as everybody thinks they are. They played a hurt Clemson team, and then every other game they've played has been a very close match. I look for the rematch between Clemson and Notre Dame to be very, very one-sided.
Well, yeah, the one thing about that game is Clemson was missing its 3 better defensive lineman players. They were missing, of course, Trevor Lawrence, who in my opinion is not only the best quarterback in college football, but one of the best offensive players in the entire country, and his skill set from the quarterback position. He's got the arm, he's got the size, he's got the legs. He's just a transcendent talent that no doubt will go number 1 overall in next year's draft or this coming up draft. So I'm also going to go a Notre Dame victory here, but I believe Boston College has enough to make it annoying for the first half, maybe even the first 3 quarters. I think they stick around in probably a 14-21 fashion, but at the end of the day, I just believe Notre Dame and Ian Book are a little bit too much. I'm going to go 38-21. Notre Dame ends up getting it done in the 4th quarter, but do not undermine this Jerkovich-driven Boston College offense, as for some reason this year, they just tend to put up a lot of yards and a lot of points, and Notre Dame gives up a lot of yards throughout the air. So this Boston College team is a little bit scary, but at the end of the day, I just believe Notre Dame's a little bit too much talented, and they just can't overcome that. All right, moving on. Number 10, Indiana versus the upset machine, Michigan State. This is an interesting game because Michigan State has already upset Michigan, like a lot of people were shocked about. Michigan State is not a very good football team, but they tend to always have that one game a year where they upset a team that they should not be beating, and it always messes with the college football rankings. But the undefeated Indiana goes up against the upset machine in Michigan State. Michigan State also can't keep the ball when they're on offense. They already have 5 fumbles and 3 interceptions thus far in the season, and they have only played 3 games. So they tend to have, they're tending to have ball security issues for sure. The QB Lombardi is so inconsistent for this team that it's unreal. He had a 3-touchdown game and a 3-interception game from one week to the other. When you have a quarterback that does that, you're never confident for the Michigan State Spartans to step out on the field on offense. What Penix Jr. showed us last week, Penix Jr. can throw the football. They ended up taking down Michigan since the first time since 1987. So that was a huge win. But I said this last week on the show. I'll say it again. I did not believe Penix Jr. could make those throws. He made those throws last week, and I have a little bit more confidence in this Indiana team than I did prior to this week. I don't think it's a fluke that they're 3-0. I think Indiana is a darn good football team, and I fully expect them to prove it yet again against a Michigan State team that, while they could be dangerous, just for the upset aspect, they always have a puncher's chance, it seems like, with this team. I think they just overwhelm them too much. Indiana maintains this one pretty big. I'm going to go Indiana 34, Michigan State 17. Seth, I'm going to go to you. What do you think about this game?
I'm going to pick Indiana on this one. I think they're going to take care of business. I don't think Michigan State has what it takes to stick with them. But I don't look for Indiana to keep it going. After this, they play Ohio State, and that'll definitely be the biggest test of them all. So,
Justin, go ahead.
Well, look, I was not a believer in Indiana at the beginning of the year, but I am here to tell the fans I am a believer. I'm on the bandwagon with Indiana. I jumped on. I'm fully on the Indiana train. Let's keep it rolling. They knock off Michigan State 24-14. They improved to 4-0, and we're coming for Ohio State.
See, I'm kind of with you here at this point. Now that Indiana's made a little bit of noise, I would like to see that upset against Ohio State. A, just because it would be so sweet to see an Ohio State team go down, but B, just because I love Indiana's coach, the energy, the passion he's been coaching with, the chest bumps with the guys at midfield. I love the energy that they have over there, and I love seeing a coaching staff that is that engaged with their team. You don't see that a lot in the bigger programs, but Indiana really is showing how much heart that they have, that they can get the job done. So I that's my underdog of the year so far. I'm loving Indiana. Let's move on to number 16, Marshall versus Middle Tennessee. Now, here's the deal. You know it's a weird year in 2020 when you have teams like Marshall and Indiana in the high rankings in college football. But this is the battle of Grant Wells versus O'Hara. Both of some of the best in their divisions at the quarterback position. The Herd have one of the best running attacks in all of their division as well. They are rated 26 out of 123 teams in all of college football for yards and yards per carry. But Brandon Knox and Sheldon Evans are not only a huge help to that offense over there for the Herd, but they are studs. Both of them averaging almost 80 yards a run or a game for each runner. So over 160 yards, two backs being able to split that load is pretty huge, considering the fact that most teams struggle to have one guy that can go over 100 yards to 80 yards a game. So they've got two guys that can do it at any given night. With no rushing attack, though, for Middle Tennessee, they're going to rely heavily on O'Hara. He is their only option on offense. While he is leading the conference in yards, he is always in the air, of course, every game, averaging almost 270 yards a game. He definitely averages a lot of interceptions as well, usually getting 1 to 2 a game. So even though he puts the ball through the air a lot and scores a lot of points, he turns the ball over a whole lot as well. I just don't think that Middle Tennessee has enough talent to be able to overtake this Marshall team, who is probably going to win their division. But Justin, I'm going to go to you. Do you think that this is an upset, or do you think that this is a Marshall lock?
Look, Middle Tennessee State, I can't even remember the last time they were any good. I can't even remember the last time they had a winning season. Just Middle Tennessee State is one of the worst teams in college football, and they have been for years. And they never have an offense. I don't think they understand how to play defense there, because I don't ever see them play defense. I don't even think they actually put guys on the field on defense. So with that, there's no way on planet Earth that I could ever pick Middle Tennessee State and any pick them. That's just insane. So Marshall, and I believe Marshall's gonna win by over 30 points. Like, it's just gonna be crazy. The quarterback from Middle Tennessee State, I believe, will have at least 2 to 3 interceptions. They, like he said, they can't run the ball, and like I said, they do not play defense whatsoever. So I'm gonna go with the final score, 48-7, and I'm going Marshall 48-7.
Seth, who do you have?
Well, I don't know if I'd hype Marshall up quite that much, but I'm going to go with Marshall winning the game. I think it'll just be too much for MTSU to handle. So,
see, at the end of the day, I actually am going to agree with Justin. I'm going to have Marshall 42-10. At the end of the day, Marshall has one of the best secondaries in their conference, one of the best running back tandems in the entire country. 26 out of 123. That's pretty shocking to me. Both guys, like I said, averaging almost 80 yards a game. Both of them is pretty insane. But also they have a quarterback that can dish the ball out. He's efficient, only has 1 interception on the year thus far. They're way over talented for this Middle Tennessee team. It's going to be a rough Saturday for Middle Tennessee, which sucks because, all of us that are around the Nashville area, we like to see our local teams succeed, but this is going to be a bad matchup for them. And now the game of the day, and I promise you guys, I didn't just pick this because I'm an Oregon guy, in case you can't tell. But a lot of the bigger games of the day got canceled due to COVID. So these are the problems that we're having to deal with. We're having to find different matchups. We're having to turn on different games. Oregon versus Washington State. Number 11, Oregon gets to play Washington State, a division rival, in prime time because of all of the other cancellations. So this is a big test for an Oregon Ducks team that gets to be in the spotlight once again. The loss of Herbert really seems to have meant nothing to this Ducks offense thus far. They didn't skip a beat in their game on Saturday. Tyler Shell threw for over 227 yards and a touchdown. He also rushed for over 45 yards and a touchdown. Then, of course, you have C.J. Verdell, who also tagged on 105 yards and a touchdown in that game. You had Dye, who also had 87 yards and a touchdown. So Oregon's just been dynamic on the offensive side of the football with a brand new offensive coordinator, with basically all new offensive pieces besides the running backs and a couple wide receivers. We had a lot of true freshmen. We had a defensive end now playing tight end because we have 5 injuries to the tight end position. So with all that mix up, Oregon still looked pretty darn good on offense. And defense, they were shaky to start that game. This was a defense that not only was doing a new scheme in the sense that we were blitzing a lot more than Oregon is used to, but we really had to settle in. We have a lot of new pieces. Breeze, one of our best players, he was the Rose Bowl defensive player, opted out due to COVID. So that is a huge hit when one of your best players, a guy who is for sure going in the first or second round in the NFL draft, is now gone. But they settled in and started creating problems for the Stanford team last week. Now they are going up against a Washington State team that has no shortage of offense, but this is no Mike Leach run offense. So is it going to be different? I think it will be, but not that much, because true freshman quarterback Jalen DeLora just seemed to light it up through the air. It just seems like Washington State can get a guy that throws 400 yards a game and 5 touchdowns like it's nothing. And they are loading right back up with a true freshman who dominated in week 1 and will look to probably try and dominate the Ducks in week 2. Max Borgatti, their lead rusher, is expected to make his debut. He's been on the COVID list. So is Max going to be a big problem for the Ducks? That is the big question, I think, because the Ducks have the best secondary in the Pac-12. They have one of the better run defense as well. So they are going to need everything they have in Washington State to pull off an upset here against Oregon. Justin, I'm going to start with you. What do you have going on in this game?
Look, Washington State, I'm a big fan. I love how they do things down there. They are a super good team, and they have a very dynamic passing attack. And with that, I'm going to go not so fast. I'm going Oregon, baby!
So I think he's going to go Oregon, guys. If you can't tell, Justin is going to go Oregon. And it's so good to be drinking this early in the morning. It really gets your day going, gets you pumped up for the day. Seth, I can tell that we've got an Oregon taker here. What do you have going on in this game?
I'm going to give it to Oregon. I think the game would be different if Mike Leach was coaching Washington State. I think it'd be a high-scoring game, and I think it would be a fun game to watch. But I don't think Washington State's going to be able to pass the ball quite as well as they would if Mike Leach was there. So I'm going to give it to an Oregon team that is looking good, but I am interested in that quarterback play a little bit more.
Yeah, see, the thing with Tyler Show is he didn't have a whole lot of time, of course, since Justin Herbert was there. We're starting to see him evolve a little bit. He had some impressive runs that really shocked not only me, but a lot of the country in last week's win against Stanford. So is this indicative of how he plays? Was it just a good game against a not so great Stanford team? This is going to be a fun game, but at the end of the day, my brother, I've got to go also with the Oregon Ducks. We're going to take this game. I'm going to go Oregon 38, Washington State 28. At the end of the day, Oregon's just too much to handle. I think that Oregon is the only shot that the Pac-12 has at a college football playoff spot. A lot of people are saying USC could be in the mix, but if Oregon and this quarterback, Tyler Shaw, can really settle in, their defense can take it home for us. We are good to go. And also, for those of you who saw the true freshman, Justin Flau, that is one of the biggest freak of natures I think I've ever seen at a linebacker position. Now I know what it feels like to be an Alabama fan when you have 6'5" guys that are playing the linebacker position. But at the end of the day, Oregon takes this, and I'm excited to see another fun college football Saturday. Well, everybody, there are our college picks. Make sure you are joining us on our social media. The Locker Room Podcast 615. That is how you lock in your answers. That is how you play. Once again, you cannot play if you play after the game has concluded. That's kind of the rules here, guys. So I have a lot of you that tend to, when the game finishes, go in and pick the right answer. In case you don't know, I have a list of everybody that enters in. So you're not cheating the system here because I got you. But once again, I've got my good friends here, Seth, my brother Justin. They're basically, one of them is family. The other one is basically an adopted family member. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. I will make sure that their social medias are attached. Go show them some love. Hey, if you like this show, share it with a friend. We're only growing from here on out. Also want to thank our sponsor, FNX Fitness. Go to fnxfit.com for all your supplement needs. Justin is a supplement guy, and he can attest that supplements do work. And also, so does wine at 8 a.m. So everybody, I want to thank you all for joining me. Seth, Justin, thank you for joining me. And let's have a great college football Saturday.
We here at the Locker Room thank you for joining us on this Saturday morning pick'em. If you'd like to know how to play along at home, it is simple. You will now see a slide with all of my social media. Follow me on Instagram every Saturday morning and you can vote. At the end of the college football season, I will pick a winner for a cash prize for whoever gets the most right answers. So make sure you follow my social media. That is the only way to lock in your answer. You must follow, then join along and play.